Liquidity risk. Understanding the importance of managing liquidity risk. Presentation overview. Defining liquidity risk. Liquidity risk is the risk of not being able to meet short-term obligations due to a shortage of cash or other liquid assets. It's an important concept in the financial world and is crucial to the survival of businesses. Potential causes of liquidity risk. Liquidity risk can be caused by various factors, including unexpected cash outflows, a decline in the value of assets, and sudden changes in market conditions. It is important to identify these factors and take appropriate steps to manage liquidity risk. Effective liquidity risk management. Effective liquidity risk management involves monitoring and forecasting cash flows, maintaining adequate reserves of liquid assets, and having a well diversified portfolio. It is important to have a robust liquidity risk management strategy in place to mitigate potential risks. Understanding liquidity risk. Effective liquidity risk management is critical to the survival of any financial institution as it mitigates the risk of being unable to meet obligations as they become due to a lack of market or funding liquidity. Definition of liquidity risk. Liquidity risk is the risk of loss arising from a financial institution's inability to meet its payment obligations when they fall due without incurring unacceptable losses. It is critical to the survival of any financial institution as effective management of liquidity risk helps prevent financial institutions from becoming illiquid or insolvent, which can cause systemic risks to the wider financial system. Importance of liquidity risk management. Risk of bankruptcy. Proper liquidity risk management is essential for avoiding bankruptcy and ensuring financial stability. A lack of liquidity can leave an institution unable to meet its obligations, leading to reputational damage and significant losses. Reputational damage. Inadequate liquidity risk management can result in reputational damage for financial institutions, undermining their credibility and trustworthiness in the eyes of clients and investors. A damaged reputation can be difficult to repair and have long lasting effects. Mitigating losses. Effective liquidity risk management can help financial institutions avoid significant losses in times of market stress and other adverse conditions. Maintaining sufficient liquidity, institutions can weather difficult periods with less impact on their operations and bottom line. Causes of liquidity risk. Market factors. Market factors that can contribute to liquidity risk include changes in market sentiment, credit spreads, and volatility. These factors can impact the liquidity of financial assets and make it difficult to buy or sell them at a fair price. Funding factors. Funding factors that can contribute to liquidity risk include changes in funding costs, access to funding, and funding concentration. These factors can impact the availability of liquidity to meet financial obligations. Market factors, market conditions. Changes in market conditions, such as sudden disruptions or changes in investor sentiment, can contribute to liquidity risk and lead to a liquidity crisis. Asset prices. A sudden drop in asset prices could lead to a liquidity crisis if investors panic and start to withdraw their funds from the market, contributing to liquidity risk. Funding factors, mismatches between assets and liabilities. Mismatches between an institution's assets and liabilities can contribute to liquidity risk. For example, if an institution has more short term liabilities than long term assets, it may be vulnerable to liquidity risk if short term funding sources dry up. Funding concentration risks. Funding concentration risks can contribute to liquidity risk. For example, if an institution relies heavily on a single funding source, it may be vulnerable to liquidity risk if that funding source dries up. Managing liquidity risk, risk identification and control. Effective liquidity risk management requires a comprehensive framework for risk identification, measurement, monitoring, and control. It involves identifying potential risks to the organization's liquidity, assessing their severity, and implementing controls to mitigate them. Maintaining high quality liquid assets. Maintaining adequate levels of high quality liquid assets is an important strategy for managing liquidity risk. This involves holding assets that can be easily converted to cash, such as government securities or cash reserves. Diversifying funding sources. Diversifying funding sources is another strategy for mitigating liquidity risk. This involves obtaining funding from a variety of sources, reducing the risk of reliance on a single funding source that may dry up during times of stress. Liquidity stress testing. Conducting regular liquidity stress testing is an important part of managing liquidity risk. It involves simulating adverse scenarios and assessing the impact on the organization's liquidity position, allowing for better preparation and risk management. Liquidity Risk Management Framework. Comprehensive Liquidity Risk Framework. A comprehensive liquidity risk management framework is necessary for financial institutions to identify, measure, monitor, and control liquidity risk. Such frameworks should be tailored to the specific needs and risks of the institution. Policies and procedures. Policies and procedures are a critical aspect of any liquidity risk management framework as they provide guidance on how liquidity risk should be managed within the institution. Tailored to institution specific needs and risks. Liquidity risk management frameworks should be tailored to the specific needs and risks of the institution to ensure that they are effective in managing liquidity risk. Liquidity stress testing. Assessing liquidity risk. Liquidity stress testing is an important tool for assessing liquidity risk. It involves simulating various scenarios to assess the institution's ability to meet its obligations under different conditions. Identifying liquidity shortfalls. Liquidity stress testing can help identify potential liquidity shortfalls and inform decision making around liquidity risk management. Conclusion. Effective liquidity risk management is crucial to the survival of any financial institution. By understanding the causes of liquidity risk and the strategies for managing it, institutions can mitigate this risk and ensure their long term viability. Thank you.